Hello, this is the Random History Dude, back to talk about the Oregon Trail. Now, the Oregon Trail was approximately 2,000 miles long, and you had to cross over three main rivers: the Platte River, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, the Columbian River, and the Snake River. And future, these rivers will get bridges across them, and so for easier transport along the Oregon Trail, which we're talking about today, if you did not listen about that. And it lasted from 1840 to 1869. Now, why did it stop? Why did the Oregon Trail end at 1869? Because the Transcontinental Railway came and screwed everything up for the Oregon Trail. And it went through the country in 1869. And that is why, because people could easily and quicker move from wherever they really live to the railway station and then go to wherever they want. Let's say Oregon City. If you wanted to go there, you can. Now, how many people went across the Oregon Trail? That would be about 300 to 400,000 people crossed the trail in its existence, about 29 years of existence. Now, the first people to cross the Oregon Trail were fur trappers, which at this time there was an abundance of furs in America because there just was. Because no one was really hunting the beavers and the mink and whatever else animals they wanted for fur at that time, before the settlers came. Now, the other people who came were the missionaries, like Nathaniel Hall, who was one of the first people to cross the Oregon Trail because of missionaries to spread it to the Indians who were there at that time. And so, the Oregon Trail started. Most people would have a jump-off point, which is where they started from. Most people would leave from Missouri, or more accurately, Independence, Missouri. And they would go across the trail to other trails if they wanted to go other places. Like there was a Santa Fe Trail that was used as more of a broad cover term for anyone who wanted to cross into, say, Oregon, Washington, or California. Now, you could stop halfway there and just set up camp, as like our friend Nathan, don't know how to spell that, don't know how to say that, but it's something like that, stopped and made a missionary in the route to Oregon. Now, if you wanted to prepare for the trail, and let's say you were an average person and wanted to prepare for the trail, what would you need? Well, most people went with oxen as their main source to get from place A to place B, wherever they wanted to go. And so, now you could use a mule and horses and other things, but oxen was just the best because they could cover the terrain pretty well and easily. Now, you would need a wagon to store your stuff. Now, some people didn't use wagons, but let's just say you did. So what would you put on the wagon? Well, you would put extra wagon supplies like an axle, a wheel, and stuff. And then you would have food like bacon, pork, beef, jerky, flour, salt, coffee, tea if you had it, and other stuff like that. Salt was mostly used to preserve meat that you hunted, and also you would want to get a rifle or a gun at that time, some ammunition so you could hunt buffalo, bighorn sheep, duck, grouse, I might be pronouncing that wrong, fish, and other animals that you could find on the way. Stop on any other way on the way at missionaries and forts like Fort Badger, Fort Kearney, I'm probably pronouncing all these wrong, Fort Vancouver, which Fort Caring was in Nebraska, Fort Badger was in Wyoming, and Fort Vancouver was in Nebraska. Now, You more than likely, if you were a person at the time, heard from the Oregon Trail from your newspaper or a book that you saw. Books that included The Migration Guide to Oregon / California. Yeah, a real page turner right there. Now, most people would go from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City at that time. Now, most people would set off in May and April to get there at a reasonable time so you didn't die of frostbite or any other frostbite at that time when you were crossing the Rockies, so you didn't die. So, most people, to avoid getting stuck in the Rockies, would take the South Pass, which was helpful because the Rockies flatten out, which they call the South Pass, to get past the Rockies. Now, let's talk about death of people through the Oregon Trail, which would be mostly from cholera, smallpox, disease, getting crushed to death, drowning, getting crushed to death by rocks, a wagon, tipped over wagon sometimes, dysentery, and other fun things you can die from. And you could, with an oxen normally, do 20 miles a day. And just to remind you how long the Oregon Trail is, that is around 2,000 miles, which, however you cross the Oregon Trail. Because it could be longer if you take the Santa Fe Trail or the California Trail. It just matters how you take it. As previously stated, there was 3 main rivers you had to cross: the Plate, the Snake, and the Columbian rivers, which you could also cross on a ferry if there was one at that time, which you hoped there was, because it would make life a lot easier if you did. Now, the trail would last about 5 months from, if you set out normally, 5 to 6 months, if you set out from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City. Now, it could take longer or shorter, depending on how good your conditions were at that time when you set out. Like, if there was an early snowfall, that could mess you up, or if you're cutting a new trail, that could also mess you up through your adventures throughout Oregon Trail. Roughly 300,000 to 400,000 people cross the trail throughout its history of being a trail that you could cross. Now, just to remind you, there is Indians still here at this time. It's not a clear path normally. And now normally you didn't have to deal with Indians, but sometimes you did, because you could get your party descended on by. Your party is your normal people you traveled with, like the people you knew and stuff, he would travel with, and they called it a party. I don't know why. Yeah, because the Oregon Trail's a party. Now, what was the outcome of the Oregon Trail? The outcome was that you got a lot of people from the one side of the country to the other side of the country to claim it for America, because manifest destiny. Now, most of this really became the Oregon Trail really became a thing because of the gold rush that was happening in California at that time. That really sparked people to go from Independence to California. The legacy is that the Mormons settled in Salt Lake, if you count that as a legacy. I don't know if you do. So, yeah, that was the Oregon Trail. Thank you and goodbye.